Hello, chess family. It's me, National Master Jesse James, and today we're looking at a very fun game I got to play in the Dragon variation. And in this game, I'm playing the white side of it. And well, a lot of times it can be hard to play against the Dragon variation. This can be the Accelerated Dragon or the regular Dragon. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys a fun line that one of my coaches taught me once, which is gonna turn the game into a nice positional or strategic game. Basically, we're gonna bind them until well, Black doesn't want to play chess anymore. Let's take a look. Again, I'm playing the white side of this game, and so I start up with e4. My opponent went c5, the Sicilian, knight to f3, d6, the old line, d4, I'm ready for the open Sicilian. After c takes, knight f6 attacks the pawn, knight c3 defends the pawn. They go and choose the Sicilian, and this time they're choosing the dragon. Now, the dragon Sicilian, there's many good ways to play against it. This one, I like to choose a very fun line, g3. You might say fun. Well, the idea to this is a little bit psychological. We know Black is a very aggressive chess player and they like to attack. That's why they chose one of the most aggressive variations, the Dragon Sicilian. So I'm going to choose a very slow line that's going to try and bind them and stop all kind of counterplay. A lot of times what will happen is Black is going to get frustrated and just kind of sacrifice for no good reason. Or they're going to get positionally bind and they can't do anything. Either way, I'm going to have some fun here. Here, bishop g7 gets played. Bishop to g2. We're going to continue with our development. They castle. I castle. Knight c6 gets played. And here we play a very interesting move here, knight d to e2. Now, we do this for a few reasons, but one of the main one is really just because, well, Black is going to be more than happy to trade here. Going from our positional rules, whenever you have less space, as Black does here, we're going to go ahead and make trades, so it's going to give our pieces more squares to move to, at least the remaining pieces on the board, right? So here, as white, since we have more space, we keep more pieces on the board. Thus, we play knight d to e2. Here, bishop to d7 got played. I go to continue with pawn to h3. Again, a strange looking move, but this is all about restriction. And the idea here is to stop knight g4 and also bishop g4. As we'll see later on, this is a very good square for the pieces to move to. Again, Black is just playing by theory. He goes ahead and plays rook over to c8. It makes sense. And here I go ahead and play knight to d5 here. And I really love this move. In the Marazzi, this is called the Marazzi hop. The hope here is that Black will go ahead and take on d5 here. And a lot of times, even my strong opponents here, as you can see, a 2500 rated opponent will do this. And we'll talk about why this is so good for us. But I am trying to entice him to go ahead and take. By the way, if they don't take and play something like, let's say, e6, this is also maybe not the best here too, because I can just take. It doesn't matter how they take back, bishop takes or queen takes. This pawn on d6 here is a backwards pawn open file here. So, well, I can't say it's going to be a free pawn totally. Black will get some compensation. It is a free pawn, or at least we can put pressure on it for the rest of the game. That's why in the game, after knight to d5, my opponent went ahead and played knight to e5. A very standard idea. What's the idea? Here, Black is looking to go knight c4 and really just start putting pressure down the diagonal. As you can see here, the knight and bishop are both putting pressure on b2. As we're going to see in the game, I'm going to go ahead and move my pawns up, but we have to do this in the right way. You can't just push your pawns up without having a strategic plan in place. I go ahead and play pawn to c3. A nice move here. The idea is to play pawn to b3. Now, I'd love to play b3 right away, but you have to be very careful. For instance, knight takes d5, pawn takes, and then do you see it? Here, there's a tactic to win the rook, knight to f3 check. So, what do I play first? Pawn to c3. Again, nice, slow, and strategic chess here. Black plays knight c4 here. Here, what's their idea? Well, they're trying to go ahead and put pressure on b2 here. But this is exactly what I want. Now I can start my slow strategic bind. Here I'm going to go ahead and play pawn to b3. Just like in the Marazzi bind, I want to get my pawn to c4 and my pawn to e4. Here I get a free tempo by attacking the knight. The knight's going to go ahead and move away. Well, here my opponent went ahead and took on d5, which is great for me. Again, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and take back with the pawn here. And now you see why I wanted the pawn to take. Now I have an open file here, and behind the open file is a backwards pawn. Remember, guys, a backwards pawn is a pawn that can't be moved forward without being captured. And we'll see in some of the games that they end up doing pawn to e5. Let's say they played it right now, even though the knight's hanging. This is just a demonstration. Pawn can just take. And after either pawn takes back, we have a backwards pawn open file here. This is also called the hanging pawns where they're next to each other. Either way, a weakness that we could put pressure on. Back to the game. Black goes ahead and retreats the knight because, of course, they don't want to lose a piece. But here, my bind is just beginning. But first things first, let's keep developing pieces. Bishop over to e3. And here, a5 got played. And I might hear someone say, hey, can they take on c3 here? Yes, they can. Just be careful. This is actually a little trap that I have in these kind of variations. First off, it's not a very good idea to trade your dark square bishop for a pawn, especially in this variation. But here, as I said, this is a trap. After knight takes, rook takes, we actually have a very nice move of bishop to h6 for a double threat. What's the idea? Well, we're threatening the rook, and if you play the simple move of, let's say, rook to e8, the only way to not lose the rook, here we have a beautiful move of queen to d4 for a double threat of checkmate and also taking on c3. As you can probably imagine, I've seen this trap, well, I've been playing this trap for quite a few years, and I've beaten quite a few masters, especially in the blitz games. Anyways, back to the game. Here, black is going to go ahead and try to create counterplay by playing a5 and a4. Again, they're really feeling the pressure here, but that's okay. Let's kill the counterplay. Pawn to a4, stopping them from moving forward. Again, restrain and maintain. Do not let your opponent do anything in this position. Here, my opponent played bishop f5. They're looking for something fun to do here. We're not going to allow it. Rook to c1. Obviously, I'd like to play pawn c4 here, but if I play c4 right away, the bishop can take. And to be honest, even if they take this rook, I'd still be quite okay in this situation, just because I'm binding them so well. But no need to give them any kind of counterplay. Rook c1 gets played. Here, h5 got played. Again, at this point, a lot of the Sicilian players are having a hard time making strategies or making plans. Again, I'm still in my opening theory here. And here, I still haven't moved my queen. I still haven't moved my rook. So, let's continue making progress. Here, I go ahead and play knight to d4. And here, it's a very nice tempo move as it's going to attack the bishop and ask it, where are you going to move to? Of course, I'm very happy to take this bishop, as this will just mess up the pawn structure. Bishop back to d7. Here we're already at a +2 position, meaning we're up 2 extra pawns as far as the computer is concerned. Again, I have all the extra space, and I'm slowly moving forward in this position. Here, let's keep developing our pieces. Rook over to e1. This is one of the main ideas. I'm going to put pressure on the e7 pawn. Although it may not look weak right now, we're going to make some progress here very soon. Here, my opponent goes ahead and plays bishop e8. A weird-looking move, but here the idea is for them to bring the knight back to d7, maybe e5, and maybe over to c5 here too. Okay, I played pawn to c4. Again, restrain and maintain. We're binding here. This is the pawn structure that I want, and as you can see here, it's binding up. Black is having a hard time making any kind of attacks or weaknesses. Here, knight to d7 got played. And again, I'm going to keep making ideas. Here I played rook c3, a really weird looking move. But here the idea is very simple for me. I want to go ahead and bring my rook over to the e file to put pressure on the backwards pawn. Again, maybe looking weird here is putting yourself into a pin, but trust me, it's not going to be there forever. Knight c5 got played. The knight is looking for a good square. Also, finally, maybe it's putting pressure on b3. I'm ready for this. Bishop to g5. Not only do I put pressure on the e7 pawn, but I'm also getting ready to double my rooks and put maximum pressure on the e pawn here. Here we go, f6 got played, a terrible move. Now this pawn truly is backwards. He's blocked his bishop, and also the g6 pawn becomes weak. Where to move the bishop to? No, see, a simple idea for me. The bishop goes all the way back to c1. This may seem like a strange move here, but anywhere else on this diagonal would be bad. On f4, it's just kind of in the way, and you have to be careful. If I go rook e3, g5 will trap it. Bishop to d2, just drops a piece. Bishop e3, well, that's going to block my rook from getting to e3. So here the bishop can either go to a3 or to b2. Bishop f7 got played. It's a move. The bishop is trying to find some better squares to move to. Again, I'm going to double my rooks, and now you can see I have maximum pressure on this backwards e7 pawn. Rook over to e8. And here I played bishop b2. I'm really not in a rush here. I can definitely play some much more aggressive moves. You know, queen e2. As you can see, computer likes pawn to g4 here, grabbing more space and making threats. I'm going to better my pieces before I start my final assault. Queen b6 got played, and it makes sense. Although at this point, they did make some blunderous ideas. Here, they're trying to put pressure on b3, but they also move the queen away from defending on e7. Now, I can take on e7 here, but again, I have a rule, restrain and maintain. If I take, now they could put good pressure on the pawn here and also win a pawn by taking as the b2 bishop is unprotected. Let's take our time. There's no need to be in a rush here. This pawn is going to be weak for the rest of the game. So here I went ahead and played simple chess, queen to d2, developing my piece finally and also defending this bishop. Here, pawn to f5 got played, another good idea for me. Why is this bad? Again, they're just making more weak squares around the king. And here, well, I'm finally ready for the move. Let's play knight to b5 here. Again, you could take on e7 here, but I'm really looking for a really strong idea to attack on g7 here. Knight a6 got played. It's a move. And here, simple chess. Again, my opponent is really just fed up in this position, and they're having a hard time trying to do anything. But here I have the idea. Again, like I said, g7 is the weakness. Bishop takes, king takes, rook takes on e7. I finally won the pawn. And it's not that I just win a pawn, it's the position is falling. We have broken into the position, and my pieces are very active. My queen's going to jump into the game. This king is very weak. It gives this a +4 position. Rook takes, rook over to e8. Of course, I can just go ahead and trade here. But here, I want to bring the queen in as soon as possible. Queen over to c3 check. King over to f8. And now rook takes on e8 here. Now, I can go ahead and move the rook over to d7 to put pressure on d6, but I also just like making trades here. Plus, I saw the queen can come in with checks here too. So, rook takes on e8, bishop takes, and this is the perfect tempo for me. Queen over to f6 check. Again, the d6 pawn is weak. The knight is very sad. The queen is very sad. The game is just going to be over very soon here. The king went over to g8 here. Knight takes on d6. Knight over to c5. The game was just pretty much over at this point. My opponent really is just looking for anything else to do. Here I went ahead and took on e8, and unfortunately for them, there really is just no good way to be stopping the checkmates around here. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this. This was a very nice game review for how to play this G3 Sicilian line against the Accelerated Dragon or the Dragon variation. Alright guys, we'll see you in the next video.